the Young Turks 14 Years Happy Women's Day.
One big challenge that women entrepreneurs face is finding the right investor. And what is the right approach to raise a fund?
You have to be very, very clear about what you want the funding for, right? Where your business is, at what stage you are at, in order to also talk about the amount of funding you need to raise. So the different levels of funding, and so at each level you have to figure out the right investor for that level, right? So if you're looking at an earlier stage, there's a whole sort of segment of investors called angel investors, right? You might look at, high net worth individuals. You might also choose to go for friends and family, by the way. At the early stage, when you're sort of going in for, you've reached a stage where you're like, you know what, I need money to really grow this business. It's getting me to, a certain point, but to sort of exponentially grow to the next level, I need money. Figure out who you need to connect to at that point in time. If it's angels, then you should have a proper pitch deck ready, have your set of asks very, very clearly defined, and your set of milestones very clearly defined. Also, at that point in time, what angels look for is a very strong founding team. Right? So make a very strong case by then for yourself on why you would be the person they would bet on amongst like the 3,000 entrepreneurs that come to them, practically every quarter.
Talk more business, be less emotional. Would that be advice that you would be giving to women entrepreneurs who go to investors for funds?
When you're talking about investment, our perspective is not just talk about money coming in. For example, what our firm has sort of created a model where, a lot of legal services are required for the startups. A lot of complex issues are coming up. So it's not as if, you can go to a very, regular lawyer who will be able to address those issues. Very, when you're talking about digital platforms, very, very complex issues. So what we have developed, for example, is taking a small equity in lieu of legal services, right? So that sort of funding also where you're, you need that support, you need those services, you can develop different models around that as well. So don't just think about investment in terms of money, but a good advice also is equally important.
I've been talking to a lot of women entrepreneurs and one of them, there's this story, when she went to an investor and she spoke to him, and the question he asked was, are you sure you'll be able to give 100% to your venture because you have a baby to take care of? So my point is, nobody asks a father, that you have a baby, will you be able to give 100% to your venture? Has any of you faced those sort of investor-related issues?
I hope she didn't take that investor on board. This just goes to show, this actually is, that woman who went through this, right, and I know it's a live example.
Yeah.
This is the cues that you get, right? This is not the kind of investor that you really want to be on board. And in fact, I feel that if the investors do feel that you are right and they plan to invest, in fact, their hopes are pinned very high on you as a woman entrepreneur, because they know that you're capable of X amount more, right? So you have to constantly prove yourself, which at times becomes a little bit unnerving. But I don't think that there is a bias.
I've been asked that question. I'm like, what a better business to have a baby and then baby Chakra, really, right? But the point being that, it's typically not a fit. The point is that when you're working with an investor, you're looking for someone who's going to be almost like a partner with you, who also trusts you implicitly, right? So at the beginning, if there's any question about, I've done all of this stuff to prove to you that I've come this far and I can go way further, and you don't believe that I can go there, then why are we even having this conversation, right? So it's not worth it. It was nice meeting you, let's move on. So that's typically been my approach. I haven't had too many of those conversations, fortunately. There is a practical challenge when you have a baby. You will need time off. And I think if you do plan to have a baby anytime, it's worthwhile having that conversation with the investor. I think there's also a positive bias to women, right? Because we're very honest, we're very upfront for the most part. Again, generalization, gross generalization. But I'm gonna say this is all of us. We are also very, very hardworking. So a lot of investors look at us and say, when I put my money behind this woman, she's gonna deliver results. Right? So you have a positive bias, make the most of that as well. Why not?
In small cities, women entrepreneurs face more issues because there they don't find many investors. They have to go to banks to get their funds. All the inheritance is in the name of their husband, the boy, the man. And all they've left is gold, which is not enough to get funds. So, what would you suggest to these women entrepreneurs from small cities? They have no collaterals to show.
I think when we are talking about, villages or, rural areas, it is little more complex in terms of, addressing these issues. And when we were even looking at the startup policy that the government has come out with, there I think I think a lot of support is required locally, and if the startup policy is able to sort of take that support to the more of a rural level rather than at the urban level, because at the urban level you have these fancy investors available. So I believe through the startup policy, I think a lot can be done, in this area for the, for the women entrepreneurs, because you're right, because collateral, etc. does become a problem. So I think through that it should be possible to, resolve to an extent.
I would like to wrap up this session. My final question, if you had a magic wand, you could change one thing about the work culture today, what would that be? Quickly.
Increase the paycheck.
Increase the paycheck.
Let there be no disparity between the paychecks for men and women.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes, Gowree. Attitude, women, men? Both. Okay.
Make sure the role that they are working is what they love, and they will never have to work again.
All right.
An importance of ruthlessly prioritization of your goals.
Okay. Naiyya?
Values and respect for individuals. Very strong focus on values and strong respect for individuals.
All right. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience. Hope you've enjoyed this session. Thank you so much.
The Young Turks 14 Years Happy Women's Day.